from the News Channel 5 Network, this is OpenLine.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to OpenLine, a very important show tonight. We have 4 guests. We're going to have 2 up at a time, and we're talking about fentanyl. And you may think you know about this, but what you will hear tonight will truly shock you and really wake you up to what is happening with fentanyl and the drug crisis in Tennessee and across the country. I want to start with our first 2 guests, and then later on we're going to move in 2 other guests to give you all kinds of perspective on this. But really want to welcome in Tanya Jacobs. Tanya, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And your son was impacted by this.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about that, Romello. But thank you for coming on. And Mindy Vincor, Assistant District Attorney with District Attorney's Office. Thank you for being here.
Yes.
As well. All right, Tanya, what is it you want people to know? I think when we hear fentanyl, do you think people understand what's going on? And I want to, get into it with your son's story, but first of all, how serious is what's happening out there right now?
It is extremely serious. I never heard of fentanyl before. This happened with my son 2 years ago. And I don't know very many parents that have lost a child that have ever heard of it before they lost their child. So that is why I'm trying to get awareness out to especially parents, because this affects the majority of kids that die from fentanyl poisoning. They're as young as 12 years old that I've known of, that I know of parents from now knowing thousands of parents on Facebook groups. They never heard of it. So now I'm trying to bring the message out to parents with kids as young as 10 years old. We have to start in middle school with this, because it affects kids when they might be depressed or sad about anything, and they having a hard time with a lot of things these days. And they might have a friend, or a friend knows a friend that says, hey, I have a pill, it's an Adderall pill or a Xanax bar or a Percocet that will make you feel better just for a little while. I can get you that pill. And so they get this pill, and actually the kids can order these pills on social media like Snapchat and have it delivered to their house like a pizza. Parents never know that they made this exchange outside of their house. The kids go upstairs in the bedroom, and the parents find them dead the next morning.
Oh my goodness! All right, I want to ask about your son's story. But fentanyl, it's a pharmaceutical, right? So this is something. It's not grown like a plant. This is manufactured, and it's approved for treating severe pain. Mm-hmm. But we're finding it now, apparently, in all sorts of drugs. Just little bit of it in a drug can be fatal. What happened to your son?
So let me just address really quickly. So the fentanyl in the medical setting, in the hospital, that's used by an anesthesiologist, they know, it's a medical substance that they use for pain purposes. But the fentanyl that's out in the street, in street drugs, is manufactured in mainly Mexico. And in order to manufacture that, they need precursors, and the precursors come from China. So China sends the precursors illegally to Mexico, and then Mexico, those cartels, they make fentanyl in their warehouses or wherever they are. And then they press these pills, and they, send the powder over to the United States, and then they have pill presses that they use to press those pills, make them look just like the real kind. In Romello's case, he thought he was getting cocaine. This was May of 2020, so the pandemic had just started. And he had a job. He had just started a career as an apprentice, electrical apprentice, a year earlier. He was very excited. He had just a week before he passed his first year exam, as the apprentice, and I just found that out at his funeral from his teacher that came. But he was depressed, and he was, stressed about his job in the pandemic, and you can't see your friends and all that. It was scary. And so he had friends that had access to what he thought was cocaine. And they usually, have little baggies. And so he got a little baggie of what he thought was cocaine, and he was by himself in his apartment the night before Memorial Day, and he snorted that, and he died by himself in his apartment within minutes because it was straight fentanyl. There was no cocaine in there at all.
Oh my goodness. Straight fentanyl. And I want to ask one more question before I bring you in. You were saying at one point you think the term overdose is the wrong term.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Overdose is used when the person that uses a drug uses too much of it. Our kids die because they're poisoned. What was in the drug that they asked for or received was not what they asked for. It was laced, or in many cases, all fentanyl. So they were deceived, they were lied to, they were poisoned, and therefore they were murdered. These are not overdose cases, these are all murder cases. Every single one of them. And
so Mindy Vincourt with District Attorney's Office, what are we seeing here in Davidson County?
Well, we've had a large number of overdoses, obviously, and primarily fentanyl, very little heroin. She was talking about the pills, and that's something I really want to talk about, and I want people to be aware of is, we have pill case after pill case, and they look like oxycodone or they look like Xanax, but when they're coming back from the lab, they're 100% fentanyl. We have, between me and the police department, and we're very lucky because General Funk and Chief Drake take this problem very seriously, and I get to work very closely with the unit in the police department that does these cases, and we talk a lot, and we haven't seen any cases that aren't pure fentanyl in the pills. Pills are very dangerous right now. And almost all the drugs we're getting are mixed with other things. It's very challenging. It's also, one thing I would also note, because I think it's important for the public to realize, is you have people that go to treatment, and a lot of my homicide cases that we have been preparing and getting ready are cases where the people have just been in treatment, sometimes as long as 10 weeks inpatient treatment. And unfortunately, they get out, their system is so weak, they are not used to using drugs, they go use a minute amount and they die. And it's tragic.
Why are we seeing that? So that's astounding. You're saying almost every pill you're coming across now in Davidson County is laced or is pure fentanyl?
Most of them are not laced. Most of them are pure fentanyl. Fentanyl is just way cheaper than the pills.
So they're saying they're selling cocaine and it's in fact fentanyl, or they're saying they're selling Xanax and it's in fact fentanyl.
Yes, Xanax, oxycodone, we see a lot. And they look just like a oxycodone. They're imprinted the same, they're the same colors, and then we test them and they're pure fentanyl.
And if you take pure fentanyl, it would kill you?
Depending on your tolerance, how much you take, yes.
So what are they doing here? Why is this happening? It seems like they're killing the very people that are their customers. Is that their intent?
I don't know what their intent is. I think they're very careless and very reckless, and I think half the time they don't know what they're selling and they don't care. They don't care. If one person dies, there's more to come along. That's why we've had so many overdose deaths. And in a lot of these cases, I don't think they had any idea what they were selling, but I don't think they cared. And the legislature has enacted a law that says it doesn't matter if they knew it had fentanyl. Like when you're selling drugs, you should have a good idea there's fentanyl in it because almost all the drugs coming in have fentanyl in it. And when they sell these drugs, our legislature said this is second-degree murder if it is the proximate cause of death when they're dealing with fentanyl in Schedule I and Schedule II substances.
And so we heard Tanya say it's not an overdose, it's murder, that she calls this murder. Are there cases? Are we able to build cases? Are we prosecuting people that sell these things? How common is that?
Well, the Neighborhood Safety Unit was started probably about 1.5 years to 2 years ago, and we've been working very closely with them. With COVID stuff, a lot of the trials have gotten behind, but we are building cases, arrests have been made, and we are in the process of prosecuting those cases. Like I said, I feel like both the leaders, Chief Drake and General Funk, have been very supportive of all of us. I meet with the police department, my team, regularly. In addition, I talk to most of them at least once a week about cases where we really do work in tandem. These cases are hard to prove, and it's very important that we work together.
And all right, I want to turn back to you, Tanya. What you said was shocking, and I'm really quite surprised to hear this. That's where we are right now. And so this happened to your son. Were you aware that he might be depressed or might want to use cocaine? I mean, kind of where were you in this?
I mean, I know he was worried because the pandemic had just started. You know, we did talk about that, but I just told him, I said, look, there's not anything we can do about it. We just have to. I mean, none of us have ever gone through a pandemic, so I really didn't have great advice for him other than we just have to keep doing what we're doing and follow the rules as far as trying to stay healthy. And I live in Colorado, actually, so I did not see him personally, you know, on a consistent basis, and we didn't always FaceTime. He did actually FaceTime me the week before he was killed, so that was the last time I actually saw him in person. But I did not know that he was as down as he was.
And have you been able to build a case? Is there a case against whoever sold him this? And is that something you are trying to find or you want? Or
well, I had hoped that they could find something, but as Mindy said, it's very hard to prove some of those cases. I know they've had success in prosecuting people, but in our case, there's not enough evidence that we could really do anything.
My goodness. So, all right, well, this sets the table for our discussion. We have several calls, so we're going to come back and take those calls. And then, so you all are going to stay up here for the next segment. Then we're going to bring in two others, Candace Sexton, a Director of Investigations with Forensic Medical Management Services, and Sergeant Michael Hotz with Metro Police Department. So we'll bring up new people. But hold on the line if you're on the line. We'll take a break. Be back right after this.